and welcome to the Paranormal Nut Podcast. That's Jim, and with us today we have a special guest, Bill from Empty Casket Paranormal.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. So, Bill, we've kind of shortly, briefly met on one of your live streams, and we kind of shortly after that put this podcast together because I really wanted to talk to you. You got a lot of interesting things, but before we get into the Ouija boards and the paranormal investigations and stuff, I think me and Jim really want to know what got you into the paranormal. Everyone's got a story. Everyone became a believer or a skeptic somehow. Can you go into that for us?
Sure. So I've always been interested in anything, supernatural, horror movies, all that kind of stuff. Grew up with that stuff. I didn't really get into the paranormal and realize that ghost hunting was a thing until I was in college. That's when ghost hunters came out. So being an engineering major, we had access to tools and stuff that was similar to what they were using on the shows. So we formed a little group, went out, we went to Gettysburg, we went to some local places, we went to Centralia, Pennsylvania, and everyone else in the group was like, all right, cool, that was fun. Let's go do something else now. But for me, I was hooked. And I spent the next several years trying to get into a group, trying to investigate here or there where I can. And most of it was just like, you go out and you do like a ghost tour or something. Then my brother got out of the Army, and me and him started going to Gettysburg every year. We'd spend the day doing historical stuff for him and the night doing ghost hunting for me. And the more I did it, the more I had to do it. So fast forward to when I met my fiance, Tanya. About a month after we started dating, we went to Gettysburg and spent the whole time ghost hunting. She grew up and currently lives in a haunted house, so she was all for it. And after that weekend, we're driving home and just decided we need to do this all the time. And that was the start of Empty Casket Paranormal.
That's awesome. And actually, there's almost like a ongoing meme, not really a meme, but like, what's your paranormal story? And I love to hear that your paranormal story, it's not a story that's very much similar to mine, where I got, me and my friends, we were teenagers, we went ghost hunting, we did this stuff, and we just loved it, though we didn't have any defining moment, unlike other paranormal investigators that all have their story. I know Jim has his.
Most of my like defining moments kind of stuff came well after I started ghost hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine came from a demon being in my childhood house. So ever since then, I've been just kind of super interested in the paranormal, like basically proving that I wasn't crazy back then.
He's still crazy, just not.
Yeah, it's still crazy.
Just not for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm there with you.
Yeah, obviously, being a paranormal investigator to the degree that you are, that's got to come with a lot of life changes. Can you go into some detail about those?
Sure. Yeah, being into the paranormal and all that stuff definitely has changed a lot. It is part of, but not the only reason that I've become a pagan. So I'm really into the spirituality side of things, really get into more the spiritualism type stuff, table tipping, Ouija boards. It's funny. I used to hate Ouija boards, like flat out terrified of them, wouldn't have them in my house, which you can see behind me is obviously no longer the case. For the first birthday that I was with Tanya, like for the first birthday that we had when she was together, I took her to Salem, and we had a blast going through Salem, doing all like the touristy stuff. And then we saw, oh, hey, look, there's a witchboard museum. And she convinced me to walk inside, and I went in, and while I was there, I just kind of had an epiphany of the fact that a Ouija board is just a tool. It's no different than dowsing rods or pendulums or EVP recorder. And I bought my first Ouija board while I was there, which is the one that you see behind me. That's a 1966 Parker Brothers Ouija board. And by the end of that weekend, I had ordered 3 more, and now I'm sitting very close to 80 boards.
80? Well,
Man, they're like Pokemon cards to you. No, I'm just kidding.
First edition.
Yeah, no, they are
holographic. That's really cool.
That's awesome.
I think I'm where you were, however long ago. I'm not a big Ouija board person. I don't really want to play with them. I don't think I'm going to get into them like you are, but I'm sure down the line.
I sure as hell didn't think I was going to.
Damn it. Cut to me 5-10 years later, and I have 80 Ouija boards. That's exactly what I need.
I remember my first experience with a Ouija board. It was a glow-in-the-dark Hasbro, and I remember it was me and my cousin who's pagan as well, and my best friend. And I remember we're doing it, and like I don't know if she was messing with us, but like it just started going haywire and like saying like crazy stuff. And it was like ever since then I haven't touched one because I always like I don't know if it was real or not. You know what I mean?
Well, the funny thing is, so I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but I actually have a Ouija board museum. It's the Empty Casket Talking Board Museum.
Yep. We're gonna get to that. Yeah. I mean, we're there now.
We're there now.
So, out of your Ouija board museum, what is your favorite item? Your favorite board?
So that's going to be one of 3 boards, depending on how we want to talk about favorites.
Okay.
So, one of the more important boards to me is that first one I got. I'll never get rid of that one. That one's meaningful because it really made a huge change in my life. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites, again, this is one that I'll never get rid of, is I have a 1901 Ouija board. A guy bought a house. There was a barn on the property. He found the Ouija board in the barn and threw it up on eBay for sale, and I got it way cheaper than I should have. And then there's one board. It's actually called Ouija, Weeeja. And it's
off-brand?
It's got a real
Ouija board from which?
Yeah. What a lot of the boards I have are kind of off-brand, but yeah, it's an off-brand. There's a company that makes it, but all the artwork is really like 1950s pinup style, and from an artistic perspective, that's my favorite.
Now, would you say do you have any like you would say like cursed Ouija boards or cursed objects like in the museum?
So I have, well, I guess you could say I have 2. One of them is supposedly haunted. I really don't think it is, but a guy found out that I was collecting them. He was up in around Schenectady, New York, and he ended up sending it to me. Yeah,
it's pretty much right where I.
Yeah, so he sent that to me. He told me the story that he hadn't touched it in 3 years. The last time he touched it, he swears he contacted a demon and got in contact with Zozo, and then things started flying off the shelves, and he threw it in a box and threw it in a closet, and then his fiance moved in and said that he had to get rid of it. So he sent it to me, and I get nothing off that board, nothing whatsoever. But I do have one other board that everybody gets attracted to. Every medium and psychic that's ever come through my museum has gone right to that board. And yeah, there's definitely something attached to that board. It's not anything bad, but there's definitely some energy to it.
Now, I got some questions about Ouija boards. I guess I'm not 100% familiar with opening and closing, but is there a risk that since you're accumulating all these boards, that if someone didn't close down the board or the portal properly, that it's still active? And then do you have to like essentially go in afterwards and close it for them, or close it before you put it in, or is that not how it works?
That's not how it works.
Okay.
I know that's a very common thought about it. In fact, one of the reasons that we have the museum, aside from justifying my collection, is there's so much bad information out there on Ouija boards. That we kind of want to educate people on the truth behind it. And what we tell people for closing out a Ouija board is literally all you have to do is say goodbye. You'll find people who say, "Oh, you have to move the planchette down to goodbye." And say, well, no, that's for them to say goodbye when they're done talking to you. you can just say goodbye, say thank you, say goodnight, whatever it is you say to just kind of close down. And even if that is just I'm done, well, that's it. You closed it. You're done.
Yeah. Like with a lot of things I've noticed throughout my couple years of doing this is it's mainly intention based then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And so a lot of like the horror stories you hear about Ouija boards, they all start the same way. Is there anything out there that wants to talk to us? Well, you open that door wide open for anything to come through.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask for the spirits of the location or a specific spirit or your spirit guides or whatever, you set your intentions, you close that door, and while sure anything else could come through, it's going to be a lot harder for them to come through.
So it'd be like, is there anything benevolent that I could talk to? So it's something good,
Yeah. You just set your bounds, and you're good to go.
So, I guess where can people find your Ouija board collection? Living Board Museum, right?
So, Talking Board Museum. So
Talking Board, sorry.
Yeah, my website is EC Talking Board Museum. Right now, we're traveling with it, so we do different events around the Northeast United States, particularly around like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We're hoping to, within a year or so, have a brick and mortar museum that people can actually just come visit.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. We're down in that area. I mean, Jim lives in that area, so I'm sure we'll check it out eventually here in the near future.
Where's the nearest event that you're having soon?
So as of recording today, the next event is in Plymouth, Pennsylvania. That's August 24th. That's at a metaphysical shop, Phoenix Lane. So we'll have the museum there, and then we'll do a lecture that night. Then October 12th, we'll be at the Waldorf Estate of Fear, which is a haunted attraction down in Lehighton, Pennsylvania.
Okay, yeah, I know it.
Yeah, so we'll be there for that night. And then the following day, we'll be driving out to Boonton, New Jersey, for a little Paracon called the Hollow.
Okay.
Ooh, the Hollow. That sounds interesting.
I'll do it. Keep my schedule clear for the 24th. Yeah, that's a Plymouth meeting's only about like an hour away from me.
Not Plymouth meeting, Plymouth, Pennsylvania. It's right outside of Wilkes-Barre.
Oh, okay. So okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go to the Lehigh one.
So, moving on to your more paranormal. I guess it's all the same field, but your specific investigations. Do you have a most memorable paranormal investigation that you kind of draw back on when people bring up that you're a paranormal investigator?
Yeah. Well, with how often I go out investigating, I have a lot of memorable occasions. Yeah, I mean, there was the time that we accidentally contacted aliens. There was the time we purposely contacted aliens.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, no, go back to... Let's stop the buck there. Tell us that story.
So we were in 40 Fort, Pennsylvania, at the 40 Fort Cemetery. We were there with some friends doing an investigation, and we had Tanya under Estes Method sitting by this one tombstone that had a whole family at it. The story of the family was they were trapped in a theater fire, and tragically all of them died. And so she's doing the Estes Method, and we're getting really, really good communication. It was one of the best Estes sessions that I've had. And then at one point, just the whole atmosphere kind of shifted a little bit. And she said that they're here, that they're watching us, that they're looking down on us, that they kept showing her a lake, and like I just kind of got the feeling that it was maybe extraterrestrial. A lot of what she was saying kind of lined up with that. Yeah. And then a few of our other friends who were running late had showed up. They sent me a text, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pull her out. We're gonna go meet with them. And I went over and pulled her out of the Estes Method, and she took the blindfold off, and she's crying hysterically. Like, what's wrong? She goes, I just saw a goddamn gray.
Oh.
What do you mean you saw a gray? She goes, well, I opened my eyes with the blindfold on, and out of the darkness, a gray stepped up. And that's when he said, we've been watching you.
Ooh.
The worst part was like they showed her a lake, and in order for us to get back to my house, and we took 2 separate cars that night, is we had to go past the lake, and we stayed on the phone with each other the whole ride because we were kind of freaked out. But going past that lake is a dead zone.
Oh,
so we weren't thrilled about that. But that kind of, I've always kind of been interested in aliens as well, and that kind of wet our whistle for using Estes to contact aliens, which not a lot of people know this, but the SB7 was originally designed to contact aliens, not ghosts.
That's so, like I feel, what's it, Dr. Richard Greer? He talks about doing Stephen like Greer. Dr. Stephen. There we go, Dr. Stephen. He does not a Estes. I don't know if it's an Estes method, but it's a like meditation.
Yeah,
to contact.
It's PE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where humans initiate contact. I actually did one of those in May with Get Haunted. We had a trifecta event at the Shanley Hotel, so we were mixing awesome. Ghost hunting. Then we had the Pine Bush Museum involved with doing the CE5 event and the alien stuff, and then we had Ronnie LeBlanc there with us for the weekend from Expedition Bigfoot. So we had Bigfoot, awesome. Aliens, and ghosts the whole weekend. It was
top 3.
Great. Hell yeah!
That's So I know there are schools of thought out there that there's no such thing as ghosts. It's all just interdimensional beings that are slipping in and out. And we've had a guest on the podcast talk about that at one point. And then there's the flip side where you got the ultra religious people who are saying, well, there's no such thing as aliens. They're all spirits and demons trying to trick you. And I'm just baffled with the amount of crossover when you start dealing with ghosts. You somehow always end up drifting into aliens or vice versa.
Oh yeah.
And not just that, then things start overlapping with cryptids. And that's why we don't consider ourselves just ghost hunters. We're paranormal podcasters and paranormal investigators. We love, everyone in the field loves all of it.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that's
well, it's interesting because the Shanley Hotel has had UFO activity there. Mid-Orange Correctional Facility, which is about 45 minutes from the Shanley, there's a gray that's seen there often. I've seen it once myself. The Conjuring House has a lot of UFO activity around it. And one of the really cool things, and this kind of brings the occult into it, is you guys are familiar with Aleister Crowley.
Yep.
So at one point he was in Egypt and he was doing a series of meditations in which he was contacting this, what he called a demon called Lem, Lem. And he ended up drawing a picture of Lem. So if you go on Google Images and you do search for Aleister Crowley Lem, it's a gray. It looks exactly like a gray. And one of the things that he told Aleister Crowley is, I've been known by many, many names. They call me angels. They call me demons. And in the future, they'll have a different name for me.
Oh, foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
awesome.
There are rabbit holes to follow down there. And I've been through them. And
we've both been to the bottom of that rabbit hole.
I mean, it goes back to ancient aliens. I mean, you can even talk to look at the stuff coming out of Peru and the Nazca mummies and all that stuff going on. And it's like, I feel like we're living at a very important time, and I know everyone says this about their specific time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it really does feel like there's some form of awakening going on.
It does,
and I kind of subscribe to my own theory, and I mean, it's not my original theory, but kind of like a zeitgeistism or a collective consciousness thing. The more we waken ourselves to these kind of things, the more we will see them.
Oh, well, 100%. So many people have said that same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
We remember when we had Starseed on?
Yes.
And
Iran?
Yeah, and she was taught. Well, I remember talking to her on a side note, and she was saying something about like in the next 10 years that what is it called? The vibration of our universe is gonna up to like a higher like dimension kind of thing in the next which I mean,
I always get weird when people start throwing out specific dates.
yeah,
I've had a lot of different psychics and mediums say, somewhere between the 2 and 10 year mark.
yeah.
That's
And
the UFO disclosure people are saying 2027 right now.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's right.
I've heard that all this like stuff with the UFO going on in Congress is kind of a soft
Prep
disclosure. They're trying to
Yep.
prep us so that they're slowly kind of feeding stuff out to us so that when they do let themselves be known, it's not a complete surprise.
And
David Grush
how
is a
long ago
legend.
was it? Like 5-10 years ago, where the Pope came out and was like, "Well, if aliens did exist, it doesn't mean,
God's even greater.
yeah," which is a fair
Yeah.
thought. I'm not going to start poking.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, they started sending theologists into space. I mean, like on NASA's team.
Yeah, and
Like,
I will
that's
go.
not strange at all.
Well,
No,
there's
of course
always
not.
been a intertwining of theology and not just astrology, but
Astronomy and
astronomy and all that. Because
Yeah.
when people first start studying it, they think they're studying the gods, and then they realize they're studying astrological bodies. Well, are those astrological bodies something special? And you can get into a lot of that, and there are a lot of, I find, quote unquote dead ends where it just begins to start sounding again a lot like astrology, which I don't really subscribe to, and I'm not going to fault people for doing, but there are a lot of similar pathways and thoughts when you start looking into that stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of the world religions, there's always like, if you look hard enough, there's always a connection to like alien lore. I mean, hell, look at the like Irish and Scottish with the Fae. Fae lore and alien lore are almost identical.
Well, yeah, we had our friend Ray on, and he's actually more talking about Latin American folklore, but like duendes, which are essentially a version of Fae elf kind of deal, but specifically for Latin America. And it's like, it sounded, everything he was saying was beat for beat what our friend Irin was saying about interdimensional aliens. And it's like, you hear the same things coming from a lot of different people who have different perspectives, and
But it's all the same.
It seems like all the same, and I try to make the connections and point it out to these, to people, and
so some people don't want to hear it.
They want to hear it, but they hear it from their perspective. So when I tell somebody who believes in Fae spirits that they might be interdimensional aliens, they say, "Yeah, what you think of interdimensional aliens is this," and and I'm trying to objectively step back and go, "Well, I don't know what it is. It just sounds like you're describing similar things as this person."
Yeah. So my big question there is, are aliens Fae, or are Fae aliens?
Yeah,
because that changes the story a lot depending on which perspective you're looking at.
And there's also, is that even the right question to ask? Does that even make sense? Kind of like, I kind of circle back to some quote when people talk about like the Big Bang and like how long did that happen and stuff. Well, it's like at that point there was no such thing as time, and you couldn't measure things in time. And I'm thinking, like, at this point in our kind of understanding of the universe, can we even describe these entities without having the,
All right, so I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret.
Okay.
All right,
and all of our viewers, exclusive,
and all of our viewers, because it's not that much of a secret. I tell a lot of people. If you're doing the Estes method or Gansfield experiment or anything like that, and you want to talk to aliens instead of ghosts, start asking about time. It's like a trigger phrase that as soon as you start asking about what's time like for you, or can you explain time to me, it's like something shifts, and you end up getting more of that, interdimensional, extraterrestrial kind of thing coming through.
And that, as soon as you start acknowledging time frames when you start talking to ghosts, then you start getting into time slippage, and then you start realizing that you might be the ghost or you might be the alien for somebody else.
That is one of my favorite theories in the paranormal.
That literally, just talking about it gives me chills.
Oh yeah, like that. Yeah. That we are the ghost for somebody else, and that what we're seeing is just a glimpse of the past.
Yes.
And it's funny, like in investigation, sometimes the interaction we have with the spirits seems like your typical traditional type ghosts, haunting kind of thing, but other times they're just as confused as we are, and they're talking to us as if we're the ghost. And I don't think it's necessarily one or the other. I think there's a combination of stuff going on. But it's really, really fun once you kind of realize, oh, I think I'm their ghost, and then you can have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
So what this really rang true to me, and I kind of always knew about these theories, but me and Jim were on one of our first ghost hunts together, and
I know
at
you're gonna bring up
in Sachs Bridge, and very notorious for the south retreating, and you see a lot of Confederate ghosts there. Obviously Gettysburg, you can see a bunch of stuff that's not just related to the Civil War, but we can get into that later. But we're on the spirit box, and at one point something says demon, and it doesn't say it like it's like I'm a demon, and it doesn't say it in a demonic voice. It kind of just says, in almost like startled, it says demon, and I'm like, maybe they're seeing us, and we're paranormal gear kitted out, headlights, vest, lights coming out of our hands.
They think you're the demon.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, this could be. And once you have that realization, I'm not scared anymore, and I'm like, oh, let's let's start peeling back the layers now.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to tell people when we host events. So, me and Tanya both work for Get Haunted. Yeah. So we help host public ghost hunting events, and a lot of times when we have newer people, they're always afraid of demons, and if we ever have through something, say demon or whatever, they get all freaked out. I'm just like, hey, if they say they're a demon, they're not. They're trying to scare you, because a real demon is not going to do that, and you're very unlikely to actually come across a demon.
Yes.
With a demon, it's like putting a puzzle together, because they don't want you to figure out their name.
Exactly.
They don't want you. They want to keep you in a state of confusion the whole time.
And one interesting thing about demons is the original definition of the word demon. It's a Greek word that just means non-human spirit. So any god, any angel, any demonic type entity, technically they're all demons because they're a non-human entity.
Yeah, Damon, I think it is.
Damon, yeah.
Yeah. And, when you start questioning if a ghost is a ghost or it's something inhuman trying to pretend to be a ghost, that's always the scariest kind of thread to start pulling on, because then when it realizes you're tugging on those strings, then those kind of metaphorical fangs start coming out.
But sometimes that could be a lot of fun as someone who likes to solve puzzles.
Yes.
And not so much, that it's scary or that you want to get in contact with anything like that, but it's more that, all right, what I'm talking to is non-human. But what non-human? Is it an alien? Is it just a nature spirit? Am I talking to a god, an angel, a devil? What is it that I'm talking to? And most of those probably are going to be benign.
Yeah, they're almost just instinctual, and they're going to do whatever you probe them or react them to. Yeah.
Right, and a lot of them will be, like nature spirits especially, are pretty neutral. They might come across as scary, but mainly because they don't really give a shit about you.
Yeah, I haven't experienced, well, as far as I'm aware, any nature spirits, but I always think of it like they just don't have the same personality as a human spirit would. So a lot of their responses and a lot of their it's just very alien or foreign, not to hark back to it being an alien,
Yeah.
but like legitimately
and
just
it could
foreign.
be really scary.
Yeah.
Just because it's not a human type reaction, but it's not necessarily a bad reaction either.
It can be. I always hearken to
but...
like the Okigahara, right? That in my mind is just a massive. I mean, is evil the right word? I think it's just what it is there. You know, it's just something so ancient and so old that it predates kind of this idea of like moral superiority or moral goodness and stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the mistakes that we make as paranormal, well, just as people in general, and this is dealing with anything on the supernatural side, whether it be gods, angels, demons, ghosts, whatever, is we try to put our own morality on them. We try to put our own way of thinking on them, and if they're not human, the way that they think, the way, you know, what they view as good and bad could be so vastly different than our viewpoint of it that it could come across worse than it's meant.
It's like dealing with like a lion or something, you know. The lion's gonna kill a elk, deer, whatever. It's gonna. That's just how it is. It's just predator.
Yeah, it's not that the lion's doing anything bad. He's just trying to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is all very interesting. We could probably talk hours on this. And honestly,
we are. This is continuing.
2-hour podcast. But I do kind of want to keep this.
Oh, before you jump. Before I forget, the elemental. So you brought that up on our Ryan's Ovulus and our Ovulus brought up elemental a couple times in the Shanley.
In the Shanley, okay. I've never gotten an elemental in the Shanley.
Like when we were, I got it when I was in the basement. He got it in the basement. Then I also got it up in Adam's room as well.
Okay. So one thing I have learned with elementals is, especially like if you're up in the mountains like the Shanley is, sometimes just doing a ghost hunt will draw them out of the mountains just to see what the hell you're doing.
Yeah. It was just a crazy coincidence that like both the Ovuluses said it a couple times.
Well, I think the thing is, and you go to any location that's known to be like a hotspot, like just that general area in Shanley or like Gettysburg, everything seems to be nearby, where you'll have a couple haunted locations and then you hear about things happening in the woods, and that leans into, you know, certain area, whether it's having underwater rivers that are powering it or like high quartz or other many theories that are out there and why certain areas have more paranormal activity, UFO sightings. But it always seems to coalesce, like if you have a ghost somewhere, you probably have aliens nearby, or you probably have
almost all the time.
Yeah, it's
you have Bigfoots, you have aliens, you have you know history of witchcraft, or it's something, you know, Native American holy site or something. There's all that stuff always comes together.
It's like the ley lines attract everything.
Yeah.
I don't use the term ley lines because I'm very ignorant about that, so I try to avoid it. But yes, the same concept.
Path of energy through the earth. Yeah. All
right. Well, now to try to keep this wrapped up in YouTube watchable.
But wait,
wait, there's more.
Kind of wrap it up. You are a pretty experienced paranormal enthusiast, as I think we've all shown here today. What would you have for any aspiring or potential future paranormal enthusiasts or paranormal investigators? What bit of advice would you give them? What would you give the college Bill who just got back from his first ghost hunt? What would you tell him?
Listen to everybody and trust no one.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because
that's a good one.
Everybody has a little piece of the truth. So listening to everybody will expand your thought process. But don't put all your trust into any one person, because nobody has it right. And if you're like, okay, well, if this person does it this way, I'm going to follow it that way, then you're doing it wrong. And you're doing it wrong the same way they are. Figure out what works best for you, because what works for one person is not going to be what works for you necessarily. So try different things, experiment, learn as much as you can from the theology side of things, the occult side of things, the scientific side of things. Bring it all together and try to find that truth, because that lives somewhere in the middle.
That's brilliant. I don't even want to follow that up. I don't think I can.
I want to ghost hunt so hard right now.
I put a lot of thought into this kind of stuff. Like this is what I do.
I think you put into words something that I've been trying to figure out myself, why I chose the more podcasty route opposed to, we are investigators, but I think if you were to 60-40 us, we'd probably be podcasters and then investigators. Mm-hmm. And I think you put into words is why I love hearing the stories from everybody and kind of grabbing every bit and piece. And then I was just telling Jim this the other day. Every time we go to a place, people offer us bits of advice to how to, hunt this or this. And I always say, we do it our ways first. We do it our way first, and then see what happens. And then we'll be willing to shift methods halfway through the hunt. But we kind of need that repeatability, I guess, or just that's how I like to come at it. At the Shanley, they say don't use AM, use FM.
Well, I had so much chatter on AM. I don't know what they were talking about.
At the Shanley, it's you don't use FM, you use AM. For a while, this is really weird. For a while, you could not use Shanley at the AM between the hours of 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. On. Like the AM channels would just shut off across the board. Like there's no AM whatsoever. I brought a bunch of equipment up there, like non-ghost hunting equipment, to try to figure out what the hell was going on, and I got nothing. Like it's not something that should ever happen. Not with AM.
Well, I tried to keep us from going on another tangent, but I failed, which is completely fine. Thank you, Bill, for coming. Empty Casket Paranormal. Where can everyone find you?
All right, so you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram at Empty Casket Paranormal. I have 2 websites, emptycasketparanormal.com, which is where I sell my ghost hunting equipment, which we didn't even get to talk about that.
Oh, we didn't?
Well, let's talk about it real quick. We'll bring
you back. We'll bring you back, and we'll talk about it.
All right. So, yeah, I make ghost hunting equipment. I sell it through my website. Then I have EC Talking Board Museum, which is our Ouija board museum. I also work with Get Haunted, so definitely go check out Get Haunted. They do awesome events all over the country. And then we have my own podcast with Trevor Faith called Haunted Casket, and you can find that either streaming on every other Wednesday on any of the Empty Casket pages, Get Haunted, or Haunted Faith.
You heard it, folks. Go check out Bill. Check out all of his things. Empty Casket. I got it right? Talking boards.
Talking board, yep.
Yeah, talking boards. Thank you for coming. Stay tuned.
Thanks for having me.
Stay crazy.
We love Bill. You love Bill.
We love you.
I love Bill too.
Everyone loves everyone.